Educational giant Martin Luther was born on November 10th, 1483 to Hans and Margaret Luther in Eisleben, Saxony, to pair of poor country folk. Eisleben, Saxony was part of the German Empire, and Luther's father Hans wanted Luther to have the best education possible. So when Martin was 7, he went to Mansfield School, and when he was 14, he went to the better school of Manenberg and then to Eisenach for his schooling. 15th century education focused on grammar, logic, and rhetoric. In 1501, he started studying at the University of Erfurt to become a lawyer. Luther's father wanted better for his son, so he encouraged him to become a lawyer, and that was the best occupation in the time. Luther actually did get his bachelor's and master's at Erfurt. However, in 1505, when he was home on holiday, something changed Luther's life forever. He was struck down by lightning and screamed to the patron St. Anne, "St. Anne, help me, I will become a monk." As we know, he was saved and followed through on his promise and became a monk. Even though his parents disapproved of this decision because they felt like becoming a monk would be a waste of his education and his parents' time and money and effort they put into getting his education. Back in the 1500s, the Catholic Church was trying to raise money in order to get churches built. So they would get their money through tithes and through indulgences, which is the practice of forgiving sin through an act, or through monetary donations. And typically the priests and monks would ask people to forgive their sins by paying so that they could build these churches. And while Luther was visiting Italy and England, he saw these injustices and decided to write the 97 Theses. He distributed it to the people and allegedly hung the paper on the door of the church. And in Luther's theory, it described how the practice of indulgences were bad, but also his main point was that we cannot make it to heaven with just faith. We also need to have good works. Without Luther's Reformation, the Church of Jesus Christ would not be possible. If you think about it, it's like a domino effect, and without Luther's change, there wouldn't be any churches besides the Catholic Church. And Henry VIII, who wanted to get a divorce from his wife, Queen Catherine, wouldn't have had any base in starting the Church of England, and the Puritans would have never come to America to escape the religious intolerance based from Queen Mary, his daughter, and then we wouldn't have the Great Awakening, which was a religious upstir in America, and it wouldn't have been brought to Palmyra, New York, and Joseph Smith would have not been searching for a church, hence the domino theory. Martin Luther, he played a big role in the restoration of our church. But Luther didn't only just change the Christian world forever, he also changed the face of education. Before Luther, reformers worked to create more schools, buildings, and to change the curriculum. Reformers looked to the Renaissance for a more humanistic approach for education. As we know, the Renaissance had a lot of humanistic approaches trying to teach people more about why and how things happen versus just let's accept it. Luther's his main thing in reforming was to get children into school and to get them to focus on the Bible. He said in a paper he wrote in 1524 called "To the Councilmen of All Cities in Germany that have established and maintained Christian schools," he said that he's disappointed that people, especially churches, have stopped running schools, and he feels that government needs to step in and help out schools, both financially and spiritually and curriculum-wise. So he said in this letter, "It's responsibility of the councilmen to develop a community in which Christian education may flourish." Luther's educational reforms, he believed everyone should get an education, both poor, rich, male, female, because back then it was more popular for rich merchants' kids to go to school, and also government children should go to school. And the poor children wouldn't get an education very much. So he felt it was important that everyone get an education so that the people can be more knowledgeable about their Bible, their community, and everything else. Let's see. Luther said, withdrawing their children from instruction and turning them to making of a living, neglecting the role of Scripture in the life of a children, parent appeared to underestimate the function of learning in the service of the Word, the sacrament, and all in which imparts the Spirit and salvation. It appears that parents do not encourage their children to learn more about God and His works in created world and history. Luther brought up the point that great empires such as Greece and Rome prided themselves on their educated people, and the fact that most of the empire was educated. Luther believed that people had to be educated in order to understand the Bible, so that it could be preserved and cherished, because back then they were starting to translate the Bible into different languages, but he felt that the most correct version was the Latin version. And so the curriculum that he created, well, he helped to create, was to focus around history, literature, language, and art, so that they could understand the Bible better in the native language it's written, and also to be able to understand the principles that it says. Without Luther's Reformation, schools would be different, because if you think about it now today, students take history, literature, language, and art, and that's what Luther focused on for education back then. So without Luther, things would be a whole lot different. And because of Luther's great, marvelous change in both the religious and educational world, he was loved and people knew about him, and Martin Luther King Jr. was named after Martin Luther.